and we talked about it a little bit on Friday, Tony. Trinity Ngati here 2 years ago got a pin to get WVU their first ever Big 12 win over Iowa State.
Well, and I think that might have been like his first win too, like Ngati himself, right? I mean,
against somebody that wasn't a Mountaineer.
Exactly,
yes.
Right. He was struggling to find a win. Now, Gremmel having a pretty good season himself, so, and you can see that Ngati's got some nice quickness and some things. What you can see pretty much right here, just from a visual standpoint, is a lot of the people that he is facing are just plain out bigger than he is. And I don't mean that just tall wise, right? But when you're talking about just structure wise and muscle and things along those lines, if he's going to compete at this weight class, he's got to build himself into the weight class a little bit better.
Both these guys, as you said, have had good seasons. Gremmel coming in at 17-8, Ngati at 9-7, had a 5-match winning streak in. And both these guys were pinned last time out, so mentally, I'm sure getting a win today will be extra important to kind of get that memory out of their minds.
Well, you know, like they say in the NFL, like with cornerbacks, like you got to have a short memory. In wrestling, you really have to have one. I mean, play by play, you got to go out and compete every single time. And the question is, what are you learning from competition to competition? What key things are you picking up in terms of what kind of adjustments you need to make in order to get better? Sometimes they're technical things. Sometimes they're tactics. You sort of screwed up in your thought process about what you were thinking of doing. And sometimes you as a former teammate of mine, Steve Millward, say sometimes you just have to grab somebody and throw them down, right? You got to. Sometimes it's just about making sure that you are tough and willing to fight for position. I recall in physics they say two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, right? So you have to fight to get to the space you want to first, and because it's competition, the other guy's fighting for the same thing. So your willingness to be uncomfortable, to go through that, to keep pushing and keep fighting your way through is a huge asset.
You mentioned confidence. I think that's where Ngati really has improved over the last couple years.
Did he just call Ngati for stalling? I guess he did. For backing out, he had a front headlock and he was trying to pull him forward, and Gremmel kept sliding forward, so I don't know. Obviously I disagree, but obviously Tim Flynn disagreed. I'm sure that a lot of people on the Mountaineers disagreed. Kevin Dresser, not so much. I don't think he disagreed with that at all.
But I feel like Ngati has really gained confidence since we saw him start as a true freshman. Seems like he's much more comfortable out there.
No doubt about it. Like I said, we talked about this before. This sport, if things don't go well, you take a beating. You take a physical beating, and mentally, emotionally, you take a beating, and what your expectation is for yourself and what you believe you can do, and trying to find strengths to work from, and he's starting to find that a little bit. There are some things that he does very, very well. He's got some quickness, he's got some ability to play with space, and he's got to use that more to his advantage. So
shout out Tim Flynn there. Very Where's Waldo look from the WVU coaches with the pink and white stripes today.
I'm not sure that was what they were going for, Mike.
Stay on your feet, no lift. Stay back on there.
Ngati staying in bounds there temporarily, but I know what to sustain it. Back to the middle. 18 seconds of riding time after a scoreless first period in favor of West Virginia's Brandon Ngati. Another look at the Mountaineer coaching staff. We found them.
Yes. That's just not wandering around all over the place.
Very easy Where's Waldo game today.
Red set, stay still, green cover lead. Keep bumping, good. Deep. Keep bumping. Deep slide. Keep up, keep these slides. Stay in the mat.
He's going to have to cut him.
Neutral.
31 seconds of riding time in favor of Ngati, but Gremmel on the board 1-0 with the escape.
And Ngati's got to pay some attention to, especially now on the boundary, since he's been called for stalling once. And sometimes in these heavyweight matches, the intensity-wise, as they get toward those edges, if people, you can't allow yourself to sort of get pushed out. That was an underhook, right? Do you hear that slap? Well, and so Ngati's got to be careful again for the stalling warning, because that helps him a little bit, right? But he's sort of burying his head in there and using it to block, which you can do temporarily, not a big deal, but you just can't stay there. You got to continue to improve position. And if it looks like you're just sort of hanging out, you almost invite the referee to call you for stalling. Those are the things. He's got some quickness. He can do those reshots right at the knee and things along those lines. He's got to change sides a little bit. If he does some of that stuff, I think he can be pretty darn good.
Kind of the flip side of being the smaller guy often is you might be the quicker guy.
No, exactly
Take advantage
right.
of that.
At the end of the second
Ngati on bottom, down 1-0, heading into the third period. Again, if you're just joining us, Iowa State leads 6-0 as Louis Miklas pinned the Mount Seniors' Noah Adams with 23 seconds left in the second period to open things at 197.
Go, Brandon, go.
Second bout of the day here at the Coliseum.
Now, this is where being smaller is a little bit problematic, right? You do not want to spend time with all of that weight on top of you. Just gotta let that go. So Gremmel's done a nice job of changing direction and changing pressures every time Ngati's gone to stand up. He's picked up the inside foot really quickly, and it's allowed him to not have to hang on to it, right, and risk being warned for stalling himself. And now Ngati's let him do that 2-on-1 on that wrist, so you got to watch being tilted there.
Riding time's now up to 18 seconds in favor of Gannon Gremmel of Iowa State.
Okay, so he's got the wrist, so you're not going to just pull your wrist up, right? You're going to have to roll it out and do some things so that you get him off your wrist. Why? Because he's stronger there. It's a leverage, right? That's the whole reason that people like to grab it. There, you finally rolled that one out.
Ngati to his feet, still has not gotten out though.
No, he's in good shape though, at least for a potential warning for stalling and getting a restart. Now you let him around the back. We're now at the place where he's going to go over a minute here in just a second in terms of riding time. Now he gets the minute on the board. I don't know that that's going to matter at the moment, because right now he's 23 seconds left in the match. Ngati hasn't really gotten to a place where he's been able to demonstrate he's been close to getting out. It looks like he's going to get ridden out here in the second period and lose 2-0 on an escape and a riding time point.
That will be the result. So Gannon Gremmel moves to 18-8 on the air, 5-2 in duels, and 3-0 in Big 12 duels. Brandon Ngati, after a 5-match win streak, has now dropped 2 in a row.
Well, sometimes that's who you're wrestling. You know, you can